Sorry to join in on the doom rattle, but there are significant issues that need to be addressed. In simple terms, this is important to everyone, as it will directly influence world economics, future crashes, living standards, and therefore your quality of life. The good news is that there is a bit of open discussion already going on around these issues, but when we truly conceive them, they don't have simple solutions. For example, building more houses is not an answer to affordability, nor is just growing the economy out of debt. They can be parts of a plan, but using them as the sole pillars will not be enough. So for this one, I'm going to go through and highlight what I have seen as the key issues impacting our economic reality. They are ugly, divisive, but they shouldn't be political. I mainly want to highlight why this is an issue without finger pointing, as it's just pointless. Watching daytime news if you really want that. Over in the UK, we love the housing market, but it certainly does not love us. Ever since social housing sell-off starting in 1980, we've been obsessed as a nation in owning our own home and using it as a dual asset as well as living accommodation. With most people, from my parents and above generations, seeing it as a ladder where you exchange and buy upwards to then drop down in your golden years, releasing the held equity. Whereas I would argue a lot of people from my generation and below only see large barriers to entry living in the southern and London areas, which involve vastly inflated prices relative to the median and average wages experienced by most people. For a lot, property has acted like a full savings account, building up the balance in equity. So why can't this continue for most people? The first is that wage growth has trailed property price growth for a fair while. The average wage is around £37,000 a year in the UK, while the average property is £269,000. Now this equates to over 7 times salary, and far beyond the 4 times that most banks stick to. The second is the barrier to entry. When my father got a mortgage for his first home, there were no affordability checks or stringent policies on deposit amounts. The whole industry was a bit cowboy, and the price of that mortgage was ridiculous, given what he was earning at the time. Whereas post-2008 financial crisis, we have rightly moved away from that system. However, the rules in combination with an increase in the housing prices have created a very premium market with low liquidity on what is an essential part of life, being shelter. A further detraction is the view of housing as an investment vehicle. So much capital is tied up in the UK housing market, as generational knowledge pushes it as an avenue for wealth, which, while not fully wrong, has created the current system. Achieving a financial anchor that restricts cash flows from investing and outside of the house, which arguably only holds an arbitrary value that you will just exchange for a more expensive one and sit on the equity without it really producing anything. After all, there is no monetary production involved. The whole basis is reliant on you hoping somebody will pay more for what you bought. As somebody who is just finishing off their diploma in financial advice, I can wholeheartedly say our benefit and tax system is a mess. If you track it along marginal terms at different income amounts, it's a system that has never been considered as a whole, but rather jerry-rigged together over time. There is a constant non-dom/domicile tax debate that goes on, essentially splitting hairs of being resident in a country and what counts as being domiciled. Arguably, you can call this aspect being part of a country, with differing rules being based on what boxes you tick and in what order. Then you have the bottom level of the tax system, where a fair portion do not see the point in working when they can take advantage of benefit loopholes to not get far off what they would need to live with comfortably. The most common one I have seen around is single mothers with children, where they report that the father is not around or part of the household. Then you get those who do put in the effort, but not making a lot. And arguably, you could sum this up as anybody sort of below 30k. Well, they look at those taking advantage, see that they're flogging themselves for not much more, and sort of sit there and go, well, what's the point? Now, with the medium and higher earners, they'll constantly get bombarded with tax clawbacks around childcare and the personal allowance removal being examples, creating a cottage industry in accounting and personal finance around getting clients in the best possible position without earning too much to avoid the higher tax rates at certain points, which is quite a laughable notion of a system where you want people to be generating more wealth, more profit, and to be paying into the system and generating more for the country. All this is further hampered by the fact that nobody can really see their taxes being spent efficiently, detracting further from a working system. This brings us on to the wealthier in society, characterised by the extreme 1%, though it is hardly just them. Now, there is an awful lot of public debate around this at the moment, and a lot of it is very divisive. And the issue, I think, has been really highlighted by Warren Buffett over the previous years, where he's openly spoken about tax breaks that are easier and accessible for the wealthy to take advantage of, allowing them to effectively remove their contribution to the system. The issue is not that there are wealthy people. After all, we want to be wealthy, including me. The issue is around the difference seen in the range of wealth in society and how it's becoming extremely concentrated with vast asset ownership, creating adverse market conditions for the majority. This can partially be seen in the UK housing market. With high levels of debt, the arguments increase for a bail-in of institutions and individuals that have advanced on top of society in the recent decades. The welfare state in Britain is held up with a measure of pride, an enlightened approach after the Second World War to create a system that has a safety net for the public and helps raise the entire population up. The future of this is locked in a quagmire of political dogma and has a looming spectre of public debt hanging over it. The NHS fundamentally does not work in its current format, that the only answer given is always to increase funding. The system is rife with abuse of privilege and an antiquated organisational and logistical structure, exposing it every year to repeated mistakes that then cost further when taken to the courts. The state pension, a highly protected and revered notion to provide a minimum retirement to all, will prove to be unavoidable in the future. The OBR chair, the Office of Budget Responsibility, I cited recently that it will increase to around 7% of the economy by 2070, with the OBR chair directly stating, when you project trends, both in terms of pension spending and health and other age-related spending forward, the UK public finances are in an unsustainable position in the long run. Now, it isn't and shouldn't be all doom and gloom, so let's touch on 4 concepts that will see us collectively out of the predicament and what I think will form pillars for us to move to and start building upon the past failures. Firstly, as a nation and a people, we need to consider what we want in our lives and to look beyond the next election, and not just in our own, but for those around us. Increasing economies and the prosperity of a nation's people is the most impactful factor in advancing the quality of an individual's life. This needs to be planned, discussed, and thought about with a long-term viewpoint, rather than just next year. After all, people want to pay less tax. Naturally, we don't want to pay anything more than we have to. But if we also want things like a state pension, a free health service, these things ultimately are all tied together. And this needs to be a reasoned and mature discussion, because after all, you can't get everything you want. Secondly, educating yourself and those around you is fundamental for improvement, an aspect that seems to have been forgotten by a lot of Britain. But this is vastly valued in developing countries and migrants that do come over, as they fundamentally know the impact it makes, often achieving social mobility. If you are ignorant on a subject and its surrounding factors, you cannot expect to make purposeful decisions on a consistent basis. And this ultimately has been one of the fundamental stagnation points in our systems and our governments. Third and fourthly, these 2 factors are tied. A push for solution over adjustment on pervasive issues, coupled with increased public pressure and discourse, will help us lead the nation and those in power towards adequate decisions being made. No politician will do anything unless they think it will equal to more votes. So we need to get the solutions backed by stringent public support so that it cannot be ignored. The majority of discourse around the issues raised just divides us further and achieves nothing. My hope is that by increasing discussion and education of the issue, we can pave a way that raises standards for everybody, rather than just leaving the majority behind. Financial poverty exists not only in the numbers present in the bank account, but also the collective household and individual knowledge with regards to the options in finance available and what they can achieve for people during their lifetime.